Everybody, my first guest this week on the show is Lance Griffin. Check him out Monday through Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. on WOOF FM 100.1 here in my neck of the woods in Dothan, Alabama. And Lance, I appreciate you coming on the show. I do not know what we're talking about today.
Oh, heavens. Thank you for asking me on a day like today. We're not going to want for anything, any conversation, that's for sure.
No, no, no. We will fill this segment of the show pretty easily with full on Auburn content. And, we are at this point in September, we are, and I did not think I would be leading a guest with basketball.
I know.
But we're recording this on Monday evening, so on Tuesday everybody would have seen the news. But obviously the news dropping, Bruce Pearl is retiring. His son Stephen Pearl is going to be taking over. He signed a 5-year contract. No interim status here. He is the head coach. He's not the interim head coach. I think, Lance, this is something we all kind of saw in the future
Hmm.
happening. I think for a lot of people, maybe people were thinking maybe just one more year and he would, step down and Stephen Pearl would take over. But did it catch you off guard when the news dropped on Monday?
It did. Certainly. I think it probably did everyone. At least the timing of it, the first day of practice, he had made some comments a month or so ago that made it sound like maybe he was going to put the Senate run on the back burner and stick it out with Auburn at least another year. Well, when the announcement came, pretty much everyone, including me, thought, okay, he's going to turn around and run for Senate. And he pretty much said today that he was not, today being Monday. And so now I think really this was about trying to set up Stephen to be as successful as he can be right off the bat. I think he knows he's got a pretty good roster this year. And you never know what your roster is going to look like next year. You can do everything right and still have a lot of roster turnover. But I think Bruce Pearl feels good about this roster. And so he probably has been in some discussions with Auburn for the last couple of months, probably to try to get things in place for this and put him, Stephen, where he can be the most successful.
You know, with the Stephen Pearl side of it, do you have like any concerns? Because obviously, this is a guy that's just been assistant under his dad. That's his coaching experience.
Hmm.
Obviously, played at Tennessee under him as well, but he's been there, since 2017. He's been right there, and it just feel like Bruce Pearl has been grooming Stephen for this role. Because I've noticed lately that Stephen Pearl's been doing a lot of the media appearances that normally you would see the head
Yep.
coach do,
Yep.
going on radio shows and other stuff. So Bruce Pearl wasn't doing as many of those. And obviously, I know he was more of the defensive guy. Burgermaster is the offensive guy.
Hmm.
I was trying to explain to somebody today, like it's a weird thing. You don't see an offensive and defense coordinator in basketball, but Auburn has it or
They
had
do.
it. What is your confidence level or just feeling about Stephen Pearl, the head coach?
Yeah, I think it's a very interesting dynamic because, on one hand, Bruce Pearl has elevated this Auburn program to where a coaching vacancy is a coveted job. Auburn could go out on the open market and hire a really good basketball coach that has experience, head coaching experience, successful head coaching experience at a high level. And so there might be some eyebrow raising about why don't you do that? And if you still think Stephen Pearl is the right guy, then hire Stephen Pearl. But on the other hand, nobody knows this system better than Stephen Pearl if it's not Bruce Pearl. He has been in this program. He is as entrenched in the Auburn way as Bruce Pearl is. They go hand in hand. So the transition is a very important thing in college basketball now, because if you go out and get another coach, all of these guys committed to the Bruce Pearl system, and if you went out and got another guy on the open market, you're probably having to build your roster from scratch again. So, on one hand, you would think, yeah, I'd like to see them go out and hire an experienced coach with a lot of head coaching ability. And then on the other, I sit there and go, no, this kind of makes sense for Auburn. And if it doesn't, Phillip, I mean, they 5 years. So he needs to win, and he needs to win early. And I think that's why Bruce Pearl made the decision he made today.
Yeah, and I feel like with the roster they have in place, and that's another thing. Doing this, you keep your roster intact. You
You
don't have
lock
to
it
maybe
in.
worry about guys leaving. I mean,
I
Tahad
said,
Pettiford coming back.
I say you lock it in. I do believe, because there is a coaching change, I do believe there is a transfer window in basketball as well. But because of the transition to Stephen, I don't know that you'll see any turnover.
Yeah, and I kind of wonder, did the players kind of know this was coming way
Yeah,
before we did?
probably. It would not surprise me. I heard that the team was being informed today, kind of when the news broke, but there may have been some hints. At the very least, Bruce giving Stephen more responsibility, more rapport with the team, so that this transition is as smooth as it can be.
And look, Stephen Pearl may be responsible for the Final Four run Auburn had. The
Yeah.
comments he made after the Alabama State game in the first round about, he didn't mention any players, but I think we all kind of knew who he was pointing his fingers at.
Yeah.
And Auburn played a lot different in the tournament after he said what he said
No doubt.
last year, calling some guys out.
Yeah. I think obviously Auburn has been very good on both sides of the ball. They've been very good defensively for the most part when players are bought in, just like you were just saying. So from that standpoint, you would think that there's still a lot of success, but there's something that's in the back of my mind, Phillip. I don't know about you. There's something in the back of my mind that Bruce Pearl just had something that most other coaches don't have. And I don't know if we're just buying into charisma or what, but he had the mix that worked both from an X's and O standpoint and from a sell the university standpoint. I wouldn't blame Stephen if he couldn't duplicate that, but you do wonder in the back of your mind, is he going to be able to continue to have this program on the level that it is now?
Yeah, I think that's my one, not really concerned, just kind of like wait and see with him. I think the on the court X's and O's part, he should be okay. I think he'll
Mhm.
have that part down, just being around Bruce and just being around the game as long as he has.
Yep.
The recruiting and, like you said, being really, Bruce Pearl was the PR for the basketball team. Just
Absolutely.
the way he would just go out and promote the program and just go wherever. If he got asked to go on TV to be an analyst for anything, he would do it.
And it was
That's one
very
thing.
good.
Yeah, so that's the outgoing part of it. That's kind of where I wonder where Stephen Pearl's going to be able to excel at that. And just talking about Bruce Pearl, 11 seasons in Auburn, 3 regular season titles, 2 SEC tournament titles, 2 Final Four appearances. And I got to say this: if he's going to go out, and the way Bruce Pearl, you just kind of feeling the person he is, he's kind of probably got to be happy if he's going to go out with a loss that it was against Todd Golden, one of his former assistants at Florida. But it's, to me, Lance, I feel like Bruce Pearl did not just change the climate of basketball at Auburn. I think he changed the state, because I don't think Alabama goes out and gets Avery Johnson, which was not a successful hire at the end of the day, but then that led you to Nate Oates. I
Mhm.
think Bruce Pearl changed basketball in the state of Alabama. What do you think?
Yeah, I thought although Avery Johnson was not successful in the long run, I do think he elevated the platform for Alabama basketball that did allow the Nate Oates hire to happen. But that was kind of lightning in a bottle. I didn't know anything about Nate Oates at the time, but Alabama did not want to cede basketball to Auburn, and
Mm-hmm.
nor does Auburn want to cede it to Alabama in basketball or anything else. So Bruce Pearl was was available at just the right time. And correct me if I'm wrong, Phillip. I believe that was a Jay Jacobs hire,
Mm-hmm.
and he got an awful lot of criticism during his time at Auburn. But he went out and took a bit of a risk. Bruce Pearl was had a show cause on him, and I don't think he was officially hired until that show cause came off. But the wheels were in motion. A lot of programs would have loved to have had Bruce Pearl, but were a little skittish to hire him. And Jay Jacobs went ahead and did it, and it's the best thing that's happened for Auburn athletics since Pat Dye.
Yeah, turned to an everything school as Bruce
Yeah,
Pearl kind of
yeah.
got famous. Jumping into football, obviously nothing to talk about what happened this weekend in Norman, Oklahoma, losing 24-17, close game. There a lot of controversies around that Auburn Oklahoma game, and not just from the Auburn side thing. I think nationally people are saying Auburn got a raw deal in that game. Now, I wasn't on the reason why they lost. There was some stuff on their side too. Offensive line, did not play great, and Jackson Arnold held on to the ball too long. But Auburn at 3-1. What were your kind of preseason expectations for this team?
I thought that a great deal of the success or lack thereof for Auburn would hinge on the Baylor game. I thought if they could get over that hump playing a quality team on the road, and I do believe Baylor is a quality team, that they could achieve their goals. And everybody wants to win every game, but I thought that if they beat Baylor, 8, maybe 9 wins are attainable. And I still think that after the Oklahoma game, they played a really good Oklahoma team straight up with bad break after bad break. So there are some things to be optimistic about going forward, but just like we had that caveat with the Stephen Pearl hire, there's always a but, right?
Mm-hmm.
But Jackson Arnold's got to know when to throw the ball, and if he doesn't, that changes everything, because when he did let go of the ball Saturday, he had a pretty good game. You'll take 21 to 32. He didn't turn the ball over, but he's just got to learn how to count to 2.1 and let the ball go. And there was a knock on him at Oklahoma about the same thing. So I say I still feel good about what Auburn can accomplish, but that's the big if.
Yeah, I saw it a little bit the week before. I went to the South Alabama game, and there was second half, and Auburn did not play great in that second half, but there was an opportunity. Cam Coleman had one-on-one coverage, and I'm saying, you're playing South Alabama, just let it go. Let him go get the ball, because we saw against Oklahoma, you just put it in his area. He can go after and get it.
Oh, tremendous mismatch. Yeah.
Unless the referees don't call a pass interference call, which we saw on
True.
Saturday. Now, so before we kind of jump more in your thoughts on it, what was on Monday morning on the game plan? What was kind of like the temperature of the callers, particularly the Auburn fans, on how they felt after the game?
Yeah, actually, to be honest, I thought they might be more angry than they were, because they had every right to be. And there were some that were angry. And usually what I try to do on the show is try to, pull the thermostat down, because typically I will defend the officials. I think they have a very difficult job and they make poor judgments just like the rest of us. But there was such an utter failure on so many levels in that game of officiating. I told our listeners right at the top of the show, I said, have at it, man. you can criticize all you want, because you had a failure at the pure judgment level. You had a failure at the replay level. You had a failure at the mechanics level with the pass interference, where the referee that should have made the call there was running away from the play, and it wasn't picked up by nearby officials. So you had a mechanics failure, and you had an interpretation failure apparently with the hideout play. So there was a failure at every level of officiating, and you can't excuse that away.
Mm-mm. The first one, that everybody was talking about, obviously the fumbles where Auburn returns to go at 7-0 early. I thought that was so big for a momentum standpoint. To go at 7-0 like that, you could really hurt the Oklahoma momentum as well with their offense. Did you think that was a catch in the fumble, or do you think it was the right call?
It was a catch and a fumble, and I can't. If I hedge a little bit on that, it's this: it was definitely a catch. It was definitely a catch. And for them to call that incomplete, I could not believe it. I think even hedging a little bit, I could not find any evidence in the 55 replays that they showed that was clear and convincing evidence to overturn it. So I was very confident at that point in time that that was going to be an Auburn touchdown. And when they came back on replay and basically said, we didn't even get to the fumble part of it because we don't think he caught the ball, I thought, that's just insane. And I know we're watching it in slow motion, but he caught the ball and he took 2 steps. I mean, that's a football move. To me, I don't understand what was seen there to call that an incompletion, but that was the beginning of the failure train for the officials that lasted all day long.
Yeah, if we only knew what we were about to be embark on
My
that game.
goodness.
And
Yeah.
my thing with it was this: I don't think there's enough there for you to overturn it. Like, it's so questionable and so how it
Mhm.
is. Like, even so, if they had called it the other way, they had called it incomplete. I have a hard time seeing how you could look at the replay and do it the other way. I just felt like you had to go with what you called on the field either way.
Yeah, I absolutely. And I thought it was going to come down to, was the receiver's backside on top of the defender or on the ground when the ball popped out? To me, that was the only question. And obviously, the officials on the field thought it was a fumble. And of course, they're inclined to let the play out and let replay take care of it. But I did not see anything from any of the replays to make me think that his backside was on the ground where the fumble would have been negated, but they didn't even get to that. They had already ruled it incomplete before we even got to that part of the play. So I was very surprised.
Just looking at how the game played out, obviously said Auburn losing 24-17, 10 sacks, like 13 TFLs. The offensive line did not play great, but at the same time, as you mentioned, Jackson Arnold's got to get rid of the ball. And I also kind of put that on coaching too. Someone's got to tell him, get rid of the ball. But also, I kind of had a little deja vu to Gus Malzahn offense. It did I don't know. It did not look like they had anybody like any kind of short slants, crossers to kind of bail him out when the pressure got to him early. Did you kind of see it that way too?
Yeah, and I'd have to go back and watch again to see on the different sacks, and I'm sure it's cut up on YouTube somewhere to be able to see all of them. But I do remember taking calls in the Gus Malzahn era, like you've got to give him a quick outlet, whatever quarterback it may be. And so I think there was something there to that. And as you said, not all of the sacks were Jackson Arnold's fault by far. And I think Hugh Freeze said today, Monday, that maybe half of them, and then half of them were just utter failures on the part of the offensive line that Jackson couldn't do anything about. And that's another part of the story of that ball game. Surprising failure of the offensive line.
Yeah, because that was supposed to be a much improved group coming in this year.
Right.
And, also it just felt like they were giving up a sack or they were committing a penalty every play, because at the end there, when they had the ball last pinned back deep, the offensive line, just the penalties just put them in so big of a hole. I mean, a 4th and 29, you're sitting there, there's just no way they can convert this. And then that was also on the offensive line, and be interesting because, again, they're going to go on another hostile environment, probably one that's even harder to play in at College Station this week.
Yeah, that's certainly a concern. And I tell you what, one of the commentators, I can't remember which one it was, one of the false starts, it was Xavier Chaplin, I believe, where he just basically just stood up in the stance. And one of the commentators said, "Do you think he's just tired? Do you think this offensive line is just tired?" And I'm like, "No, it doesn't work that way. It's the defensive line that gets tired. The offensive line doesn't." But he may very well have been onto something, because a couple of plays later, the sack in the end zone, one guy rushed, Phillip, one guy. The other 3 defensive linemen played contain, and one guy rushed and got there so easily that maybe the offensive line was just flat exhausted. But if they are, something's wrong.
Yeah, I know it. All these questions sound like I'm piling on the offense. I think there was some good things with the passing game when Jackson Arnold with the run game. That was another thing with me. Jeremiah Cobb had played so well leading up to this. And look, I know you're going up against a much better defensive front, and maybe Hugh Freeze felt like, hey, we can't run like we should, but I think you should at least try it, at least keep them honest. And I think that would have helped. I mean, just the lack of the attempt to run the game with the run game with the running backs.
And I know against Oklahoma, it's going to be hard to do that, but Cobb did have a really good run, broke a bunch of tackles and got it into Oklahoma territory that helped set up some things. And I thought maybe they did get away from it. We had some of these same conversations on the show last year when Auburn lost some games and it looked like they got away from Jarquez Hunter too early. I don't know. Maybe you take the opponent into account, and maybe you believe you're just not going to be able to run it on Oklahoma, but I don't know. It's definitely a fair question to ask.
Now, I will say this. I think going into the game, the Auburn secondary had kind of been criticized after the Baylor game, but then you look what Baylor's doing against everybody. I mean, Robertson's just shredding everybody through their passing game. But then also they had some struggle at South Alabama as well, the secondary did. I thought they played well. I know the numbers, you look at the final numbers, really won't show that. But I think they did a good job at keeping Mateer in the pocket, contained. He didn't really beat him too bad with his feet, other than the touchdown was eventually the game winner. On that side of the ball, what was your big takeaway from the Auburn defense?
One, how well they tackled, and they have not tackled well all year. And I thought that was really going to be a problem for Auburn in that game, and they tackled extremely well. And the second thing that jumped out to me was the play of the linebackers. I thought that tight end Kanak, I think is his name. I thought he was going to have a monster day, and I thought The defense played really well enough to win. And I read where I think Mateer was 13 of his last 15. But boy, you get that kind of performance from the defense, and you expect to win the game. And with the calls, maybe they would have. I don't know, but if they'd have gotten just a little bit more from the offense, they would have anyway.
And then looking at the matchup, Texas A&M this Saturday at 2:30. Again, they'll be there at College Station. A&M's a 6.5-point favorite. I'm looking at their first three games. A&M, they're giving up a lot of yards and
Mm-hmm.
points on the ground. They're giving up 139 a game, through the air 211. I really feel like this is a game, and Auburn has had success there at College Station
Yep.
since A&M's coming to the SEC. When you look at this matchup, what are going to be some key things for you that you're going to be looking out for?
Yeah, I agree. I think this is a toss-up game. I'm very surprised the spread is what it is right now. I think Texas A&M is getting a lot of um, momentum from the Notre Dame game, which I don't want to take anything away from that. I mean, they found a way to win that game, but the same things jump out to me. I believe Auburn will be able to move the ball on the ground against A&M. I don't know if Marcel Reed will be able to have the same type of game that he had against Notre Dame. He's very, very talented, but sometimes he can spray it around. Sometimes he's just not that accurate. And if that Auburn defense that showed up in Norman shows up in College Station, I like Auburn to win the game. And I know that's a lot of ifs, but they won't play a defense probably all season long as good as Oklahoma's. And if they can protect Jackson Arnold a little bit better and he can get the ball out, I think they got a really good shot to go ahead and grab this road win over A&M, which would be the first ranked road win in a long time.
Yeah, it will be. There's another big game in the SEC. Alabama and Georgia playing on Saturday night. Ty Simpson versus Gunnar Stockton. I know that was a big question. You looked at Alabama and Georgia. You knew they're going to be good defensively. You knew the skill position players were good. We've seen Ty Simpson against Florida State. He did not play well. Now, he's played well since then.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think we kind of figured out what Gunnar Stockton's all about against Tennessee. And Lance, I'm just like this with Alabama, and I know they're feeling good after the last 3 weeks playing well. They have. But I'm kind of like with Kalen DeBoer in this program, until they can go on the road and beat somebody good, that's going to be something that looms over them. But when you look at this matchup, kind of like the question I asked you for Auburn A&M, but what is going to be some keys for you on this one?
Yeah, I think good Alabama against good Georgia. Good Alabama probably wins the game. I predicted at the beginning of the season that Alabama would beat Georgia. I don't necessarily think that anymore because I just can't with any confidence think that Alabama is going to show up and play well on the road. They have not too many times. So I'm going to have to see them put a couple of good road performances together before I'm going to believe it. So I think if Georgia can get Alabama back on its heels the way that Florida State did, get some momentum, get Alabama out of an offensive rhythm, which they've had against lesser opponents over the last couple of games, I think it might be pretty hard. So I know Alabama has Georgia's number, and I think the spread's only 3.5 or something like that. But I just have to see Alabama show up on the road, which they haven't in a while.
With this game, we may answer the question I'm about to ask you: who's the best team in the SEC? Because we came in this year, Texas was anointed as the best team, not only in the SEC but college football. Arch has not, lived up to expectations. I mean, now against Sam Houston State, it looked great. We'll see what happens when they play a much better opponent down the road. Yeah. LSU looks great on defense, but now the offense is falling behind. It's reversed what it's been with Brian Kelly. I think Tennessee's still a player. I mean, I think they actually. We talk about pro sports when it really feels like then when UCLA made a trade. I think Tennessee got the better end of it so far.
Who could have predicted?
And Ole Miss is 2-0 in the conference. I know it. It's against Arkansas and Kentucky, but just we almost through the first month of the season. Who do you think is the best team in this conference?
Well, I agree with you. I think that Georgia-Tennessee game was played at a high level, really high level. So it wouldn't be surprising to me if they were the two best teams. You have to respect LSU until they lose, which they very well could in Oxford this Saturday. Then you start thinking about maybe Ole Miss being up there. They've done very well with a backup quarterback. Lane Kiffin's very gifted. And the team I never talk about enough that always proves me wrong is Missouri. Mm-hmm. And they've got a good win over South Carolina already. They are able to run the ball against anybody practically. So I think they've got a pretty good quarterback in their transfer from Penn State, Prabula. So I wouldn't count them out either. But I think 1-12 almost, anybody could beat anybody. It wouldn't be that much of a surprise. It really wouldn't surprise me if, I don't think they play each other, but it wouldn't surprise me if South Carolina beat Texas. It wouldn't surprise me if Missouri beat Georgia. That it just wouldn't. So I think we're crunching the teams together, and there's less separation.
And as long as you've been doing this, Lance, when did you think we would get to a point where Vanderbilt was one of the most scariest teams in the conference?
I tell you, I thought they'd come back to the pack this year. I thought maybe the Pavia Magic was, kind of over and done, but they're a good team all around. I mean, they play good defense. They have a good system. They're talented at tight end. They've got a good running back. I mean, I I just never thought that I would be at a place where you didn't want Vanderbilt on your schedule, but I'd rather play Vanderbilt than a couple other teams, right? I mean, I'd rather play a couple of other teams than Vanderbilt right now.
I know who wouldn't. That's Hugh Freeze. Hugh Freeze is ready for Diego Pavia to be out of college football. He cannot get away from him.
No
But
doubt.
Diego keeps petitioning for more eligibility, so I guess he wants to be a full time, a
Yeah,
career college player.
that story got out last week, and I think that was more his attorney than him, because I think he posted that, I'm done, man. But he's going to walk away with a good chunk of money now, especially with this extra year. And yes, Hugh Freeze couldn't be happier to see that.
Yeah, absolutely. They play it this year, and so does Alabama playing too as well. So
Yeah.
he did go to get state last year. We'll see how it's going to go this year. But Lance, it's been fun having you on the show. I hadn't done this in a while, but I always appreciate when you come on the show. Listeners, viewers, want to follow you online. Where can they find you? Where can they check out the game plan?
Yeah. So I got a Facebook page. It's The Game Plan with Lance Griffin. The Game Plan with Lance Griffin. Also on X at Eagle Lance. If you want to follow me on X, Eagle Lance, and things pop up every once in a while. But FM 100.1, AM 560. If you want to listen online, it's woofradio.net.
All right, everybody, go check out the game plan with Lance Griffin. It's a great listen every single day, and Lance, appreciate it, and look forward when we get to do this again.
Appreciate the timing. We've had fun.